Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today and every other day that you watch one of my shows. So you'll note, if you clicked on this thumbnail, that this is 113, episode 113, part 2. Or rather, take 2. So, last week was Gen Con Indy. 2022. A great show. We'll get into that in a second. Sadly, we had some technical difficulties. I tried to record from the hotel from my laptop, and the video quality wasn't great because it's just a little laptop computer. I didn't bring my full rig or anything. But apparently, I also did not have either the microphone wasn't turned on or the microphone jack wasn't working or something, because the entire video from last week has no sound. Which, it is what it is, technical error, but if you try to go back and watch that, it's not your computer, I promise. It is my technical difficulties. What I wanted to do originally is this was going to be kind of a checkup, because that last week's episode, if you could hear it, was me talking about how the first day of Gen Con went really well and all of this stuff. Well, this week I was going to do the kind of, hey, now that Gen Con is over, here's the recap. So instead, you kind of get both of them at the same time, plus a bunch of other cool news. Let's go ahead and we'll do the week in Bryan. Obviously, I'm going to skip over the fact that about half of the week of Bryan was Gen Con, because we're going to talk about that. So ignore that. Work-wise, it has been a great week. Still slugging away on a very cool Transformers RPG project. I started to lay down some of the lore structure for the Warzone Eternal book, for the main rule book, which that's always weird. Alex, the owner and manager of Res Nova, the people who own the Warzone license, we had a very cool meeting at Gen Con, which I'll talk about that here in a second. But at that meeting, one of the things that we decided is that we need to start moving forward to get the actual book created, to get it ready, get us ready so we can hopefully be able to hit the little red button that says go, or green button, I don't remember, whatever Kickstarter's button is. But one of the things that we were talking about is how much lore and backstory does a war game that is based off of a setting of novels and role-playing games and past miniature games, and how much of that do you actually need, or can you give someone the overview, give them the finer points, and then let them do the research themselves if they're super into it, or expand further as new books and products and stuff comes out. We talked a lot about it and whatnot. Because part of the reason why that's even a discussion is sometimes it feels weird to try and regurgitate old lore. Because one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we are loyal to the lore that has come before it, the Mutant Chronicles lore, and specifically the mainstay Mutant Chronicles lore, not some of the diversions and deviations that have happened in the since it's created. But it's one of those things where you don't want to just retell the same story, because then it looks like you're just kind of padding your book with pages of stuff that everyone's already read. But you also don't want to whole cloth recreate everything or create a whole bunch of new canon, because then you are changing a time-tested story. You're changing the canon that has happened before. So you kind of run into this situation where you need to rehash old stuff, insert thematically sound new stuff, and mix it together so it's like a new read instead of, oh, I already know the story, so I can just skip this section. That's just how it is. And so that's what I've started in my spare time to throw down a couple of words here and there to start kind of laying the groundwork for that with Warzone. But most of my time has been spent either doing commission painting. I've got a huge commission. I just finished a Conquest commission for a friend, and I'm still got an ongoing Infinity commission. Or rather, I guess it's Defiance or whatever the kind of board game-ish skirmishy thing that Corvus Belli came up with. That's technically what I'm painting, but they're all Infinity models. But I've got a huge Infinity model order through that I'm working on bit by bit. So that's been taking up a lot of my spare time. Spare time. I've got two categories of spare time. But then most of my work day has been spent on doing stuff for the Transformers role-playing game. The first big adventure arc, which is going to be awesome. I'm super excited about that. And actually, Gen Con has made me even more excited for the Essence 20 stuff. And I'll get to that in a second. Gaming wise, actually been playing a lot. I'll talk about the stuff I played at Gen Con in a second, but my wife and my son, we've been playing a lot of board games and card games lately. We just played Llamas Unleashed from T-Turtle, which is a great game. It's basically, if you've played Unstable Unicorns from T-Turtle, it's the same game with some slightly altered rules, and obviously no expansions yet. So it's not, you don't run into that, oh, your main deck is, this thick, filled with all kinds of different, additional rules. It's just a basic good game, and it's solid. It's a we love Unstable Unicorns. Llamas Unleashed made perfect sense. And then we also tried, Natalie and I tried Dragons versus Unicorns Tic Tac KO. Very cute, very very cute game. It's built so you can play 3 or 4 players. But I really do think that it is primarily a head-to-head game, because even when you're playing multiple players, you still only have 2 teams, Dragons versus Unicorns. I think it plays very fast. It's very fun. The art is adorable, as with anything with T-Turtle. So if you get a chance to take a look at it, do so. If you were someone like me that pre-ordered it from them and got a promo card, it is there. If there is only one thing that grouched me out about getting this game after opening it up and reading it and everything, is that the whole point of the game is that the two decks, the two sides are equal. That they're they've got the same strengths, the same weaknesses. They're just kind of different versions of the same mentality. Hence why they're playing Tic Tac KO. But the promo card is a unicorn, which means, even if it's just fractionally, obviously it didn't make a difference in the game itself, but even if it's just a fraction of a percentage, the unicorns have a slight leg up, because they have one more card, one more power that the dragon cards do not have. So I really wish that T-Turtle, if you're listening, T-Turtle, I really wish that they would have done, as the pre-order, a promo card set of 1 dragon and 1 unicorn, rather than just 1 unicorn. Now, obviously, if they come up with something else for it, or maybe an expansion, the promo card should be a dragon, and that would equal things out. I'm just worried that they may not have really, because it is kind of just a fun sort of schlock game. I'm kind of wondering if maybe they weren't really paying attention to that, and in the future might not care. I care, and I hope that we get a dragon promo soon. Let's see, what else have I played? Played some Sea of Thieves. Season 4 starts today. I'm excited about that. Um, Played. So there is a game on the Xbox called Tabs, the totally accurate battle simulator, and it's super fun. It's just a goofy little, it's like a video game war game, but where all the models are silly. Like they walk around stupid, they get caught on graphics, they trip over themselves, just all kinds of goofy stuff. But they still you still technically are setting up kind of these battle simulations, and someone out there put out the beta version of the unit creator, so you can actually make your own units. And they made it available on the Xbox, and my son and I have been making all kinds of guys. Obviously, I've been making all kinds of DC superheroes and supervillains. And you can't ever quite get it perfect. Like our Flash, our the Flash, runs ridiculously fast, but trips over himself all the time. And like the main reason why you bring him is not to beat up enemies. It's just basically to run into opponent fire, make them shoot at him because they'll miss. And then when he trips and runs into them, he knocks over people, and it keeps them on the ground while my other guys are walking up and dealing stuff. He's basically a big distraction. But that's a fun game. You should totally look it up. It's technically it's under Tabs, Tabs. Super fun. Yeah, having a great time with that. What else? Didn't get a chance to play Waking Realms last week because Gen Con. But I did get a chance to play Curse of Strahd last night, and for the first time in a while, our team went in with a mission, with a goal and a concept, stuck to the plan, and succeeded. There's a very scary monster in Curse of Strahd called it's a witch that's obviously modeled after Baba Yaga, named Baba Lysaga. And she's got a walking house, and it's very, very scary. We fought her once before a long time ago, and she trounced us, even killing one of our party members. And this time around, we didn't lose anybody. We had a couple people get knocked to zero, but brought back up. We didn't lose anybody. We managed to destroy the house first. And then focus on the witch. We actually got very lucky, and our bard, who we have hilariously nicknamed Nutmeg because his name is like Nevermander or one of these super pompous big long things, so we've nicknamed him Nutmeg. Nutmeg cast Tasha's Hideous Laughter. And if you know that spell, it's a great way to incapacitate someone long enough to kind of heal up your troops, to kind of give yourself, because if you start attacking them, they the spell breaks. So while we've got a lucky break, the spell affected her. She's rolling around on the ground laughing, and we basically planned the next round of, okay, on my mark, everybody clobber this chick. And it worked. We did a ton of damage in one round. She started to try and flee. And then yours truly cast Hex on her to do a little bit of extra damage as a bonus action, flung a spear into the last amount of damage to bring her down. It was good. It was a solid. It was a fun battle. Scary battle. When big spells get flung around and you start taking 20-30 points of damage at a hit, even in 5e, where mortality is hard to come by, it is, you still have that moment. you have that oh man, I hope I don't get hit again, because that's gonna suck. Or if two or three of us get hit that hard, are we gonna have to flee again? So it was just a good combat. It took most of our session up, and then we started searching the ruins of the house and whatever to try and find loot. We found a bunch of loot, but before we had a chance to actually determine what any of it is, we needed to stop the session and pick up here in 2 weeks. So very cool. Happy about that. But yeah, that's pretty much been my week, is just painting and writing and playing some games, doing some parenting here and there. Um, let's get to talk about Gen Con. All right, first and foremost, before I get into the specifics, before I go into the actual like days of the event and what happened and all the cool stuff, I do have two quick announcements. Two announcements. So while I was at Gen Con, I got to talk to one of my dearest friends, Jake, who is my rep over at Armor Class 10 Gamer Apparel. And you'll note for the last it's been probably 8 months or so, I haven't had any new T-shirts to show. Just existing cool ones. Nothing wrong with that. But I haven't had any new AC10 apparel to try and get you guys to go there and buy, which you totally should. I have a discount code. You get like 10% off, and you can get amazing shirts. Do it. Especially here pretty soon. I have whispers. I can't say exactly who or what or why, but it sounds like AC10 is going to get to do some official merch for some companies, and it would be pretty awesome to get 10% off official merch. So, bookmark their website, watch here for more news. I will tell you they're an amazing sponsor. I love them to death, and as I was about ready to get to say is when I stopped by their booth, talked to Jake, and he during COVID, during the main part of the quarantine, they really weren't doing much business. They weren't they were selling stuff, but they weren't really producing anything, just for the sheer fact that costs needed to stay really low. Otherwise, as a company, that puts you in a pinch. So they really weren't producing very much, but they were designing stuff. They were making new designs, and they had a whole bunch of them to show at Gen Con. And so I ordered a bunch through them as my sponsor, and hopefully the next X number of episodes, once that order comes in, you'll get to see some new cool stuff, and then go over to Armor Class 10 Apparel and buy them using my code TFAPN to FAPN, Tales from a Professional Nerd, to get 10% off. Please use the code. They're a good sponsor. Buy cool stuff from them. But speaking of sponsors, before I get into Gen Con, I realized that I forgot one very, very, very cool piece of news. So, you guys all know that I adore the Turbo Dork line of paint. I love what they do. They have metallic color shifting paints. They've got some of the best interesting shades and hues of metallic paint that I have ever seen. There is a very cool technique that you can use to paint over any metallic, even their color shifting metallic, to paint over it with the Games Workshop contrast paints that are the contrast paints are formulated to have a very thin pigment to binding ratio, which means if you paint over a metallic with the contrast paints, a very cool effect happens where basically you get sort of a shiny version of whatever pigment you put over the top. Doing it with Turbo Dork paints, you get even a better. It's not even just a pigment hue. You get kind of a shift in some of the colors. Oh, it's gorgeous. But basically, Turbo Dork makes some amazing paints. And they recently announced a new set that is going on sale soon. That is their expansion 4 set that's got a couple of really cool colors that I cannot wait to show you. But I contacted them and was like, listen, I love your stuff, and you were always sending me product. Why don't we make this official? Why don't we, I don't know, kiss over the painting donkey or whatever kind of weird superstition we need to do, break the spaghetti noodles over our head. I'm just coming up with weird stuff. Each drink our favorite thing of paint. Don't do that. It's not good for you. But whatever we needed to do to basically make our relationship a little more official. And talking to their manager, they are now an official sponsor of Tales from a Professional Nerd. Yay, Turbo Dork! So basically, as soon as product comes out from Turbo Dork, you'll see it here, probably before it's actually available, so you can get your store to pre-order it, things like that. I don't have the new products yet, but I do know that they are in transit. So expect very soon. I need to experiment a little more to try and get my hobby rig up and running again, because I need to do some hobby episodes. It's been a minute. But expect to see some very, very cool things. One of which is, I don't remember the name of it because I don't have it sitting in front of me, but they have a metallic black that is probably one of the coolest color effects that I've seen, because it's obviously still a black hue. It is dark, it sucks up light, but it has that metallic sheen to it. I don't know how to explain it other than that, and hopefully I will get to show you guys. My first thought for those is like to paint, if I ever had to paint like, you know, like a Darth Vader model or something like that, where it's that sort of black, shiny, metallic, plasticky. Yeah. So I'm excited, to say the least. But yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and announce that Turbo Dork is a official sponsor of Tales from a Professional Nerd. So as product comes out from them, I will show you cool stuff from them. All right, back to talking about Gen Con. So overall review, great show. Super fantastic show. It was weird not being tethered to a booth. It was strange having a chance to run around and play games and eavesdrop, and I ducked in on several of the plays of our Essence 20 system, to kind of just see how the players are doing, how the game masters are handling it, that sort of thing. Overall, it was just very weird because attendance was much lower than Gen Con normally is. Due to safety regulations, they cut the pre-reg in half, and then I have heard that they actually didn't even necessarily hit that. So it was a very light show when it comes to Gen Con numbers. 30,000 people at a show is still a lot of people for most folk, and for most other shows that's a lot of people. But considering Gen Con was getting up to 65 and 70, PAX Prime gets up to, I want to say this year it was like 80 or 85, or maybe the last time they had one. There's a lot of attendees to these shows, the bigger shows, so getting one that's this light felt strange. The hallways felt empty, the walkways felt much more open. You move around a lot. You didn't get a lot of sudden stops in the hallway because 30 people stopped to look at something, or somebody stopped to, hey, I need to take a picture of your cosplay, so everybody freezes. Just overall, it just seemed like a lighter feel of a show. Also, everybody being masked. And now I will say this, for the people who are concerned, who are like, I just can't go, because there's always people who refuse to mask. Gen Con was cracking down on it. I saw a total, inside the halls themselves, I saw a total of 2 noses the entire time. People whose masks had popped down. When someone needed to take a drink, or if they were sitting in the food court, they might have, were eating or whatever. That's a different story, but walking around and interacting with people, everybody stayed masked. It was fantastic. Up until non-Gen Con goers started using the convention center as a hallway to get from point A to point B, and they weren't masked. That was a little bit of a problem, but Gen Con solved that by closing down an entire, all of the doors to an entire hall, making it far more difficult for the wanderers who wanted to get from point A to point B by skipping through the convention center. It made it a lot harder for them, so it was easier for them to go around staying outside where Gen Con didn't have any jurisdiction anyway. But overall, super awesome. I've heard of, I think one case so far that I've heard on my feeds and whatnot, and then have shown up on fans of Gen Con Facebook page. Only one case of anybody catching anything, and in that instance, they even said, they even mentioned that this was an outside case, and they may very well have had it beforehand. They might not have known that sort of thing, or possibly picked it up on the flight. They have no idea because, again, there's not been a lot of reports. Everybody's going out and getting tested. Everybody's doing their two weeks of, let's watch for symptoms and that kind of stuff. I'm excited. It was a big anxiety point for a lot of people, and I know that it drove a lot of people away. Where even close friends of mine, they were like, "Nah, I'm not going anywhere near that place. It's going to be a germ factory." I am glad to show that the science of vaccination and masks were working. So we'll see in a couple of weeks, as I'm sure more people will come forward. But as of right now, it seems like it was a really safe and good experience. The only thing I had, the only kind of negative that I had is the food trucks. If you've ever been to a Gen Con in the last couple of years, they set up part of Georgia Street as kind of food truck central. And it's awesome because all these food trucks get just a steady supply of business. There's always good food that's not at convention prices. You don't have to walk all the way to Circle Center Mall to get their food court. You can just go out to the food court and grab your food there. The lines were still pretty ridiculous. It is what it is. Any type of, this is the best food in the area for the least amount of money, you're gonna have that. But my issue, I think I had, was they had all of the food trucks turned inward, so they were all of their lines were faced into the kind of beer garden food court area, and what that created is a very big area where a lot of people were packed in, and because they were eating and drinking, they all had their masks off. It created kind of a outdoor atmosphere, indoor crowd. Hopefully being outdoors helped, keeping the germs down or whatever, but I did not care for that. I would have actually liked, if planning wise, if maybe every other food truck was turned the opposite direction. So you like one line into the sidewalk, one line into the place, one line into the sidewalk, one line into the place. I think that could have maybe helped spread out the crowd a little bit, and maybe focused on people finding seating that was not just those handful of stand-up tables in the middle of the crowd. But I digress. Let's get into the actual show. So I got there on Thursday, so I missed out on any Wednesday night stuff. I missed out on the Diana Jones Awards. But just I rolled in on Thursday, and it was a great feeling to not have to be like, oh, I have to be there at 9 o'clock. I've got to be there when they open. I've got to be there to crunch. Nope. I took the kids to school, and came back, packed my bags, had a little lunch, and then my wife drove me down and dropped me off at the hotel. And then I got unpacked, chilled out a little bit. I think I might have even taken a nap because I got up so early. And then I headed over to the convention center to start meeting up with people. So it was cool. It was neat to not have a super tight schedule that Thursday. I can kind of just roll in when I want to. Something that I'm doing again at Gamehole Con next month is, while I'm running some events there, I have nothing on Thursday. So I can just sort of drive up at my leisure, ignore rush hour. I don't have to drive through to Chicago. I can drive all the way around Chicago and not care. I think that's the way to do it, in my opinion. Now, if I'm on someone else's dime and they are like focused on, well, I need you there at this time, I'm doing what I get paid for. But on Thursday, so I went around. I did my first quick, tour of duty to see everybody. It was so nice to see my Renegade family, at least some of them, in person. I've met Elisa before in person, but this I had never, not since working for her. So it was nice to get to see her. Trivia Fox, our Elisa's assistant, and our like go-to for art and maps and things within Renegade. Um, it was fantastic meeting them. Uh, I had never met them before, so getting to spend some time with them. I really hope that at a smaller show, a less hectic show, I'll get to spend more time with these people. Just if there was a downfall to Gen Con being the first big show coming back after the pandemic, or rather after the quarantine pandemic still going on because people are stupid, get vaccinated. Um, the uh, the atmosphere of wanting to see everybody, to meet, to track down my convention family, was hard. I missed a lot of people. I texted people. There was people that I even actually like tried to set plans up with, and then things fell apart because of just timing and whatnot. Just you get busy. It is what it is, and they get busy, and you cross paths, and it sucks. We were supposed, my wife and I, Natalie came down with my stepson at on Friday in the efforts to meet up with our friends Satine Phoenix and Jameson Stone, who were doing a bunch of really cool stuff for their company, but it was impossible. We missed them by minutes twice. I tried to track them down the following day at a booth they said they were going to be at, and I was running late because of an event. It's just hectic. It's hectic, and we are glad that we're going to get a chance to see them at Gamehole Con or Adepticon in the spring, or rather not Adepticon, GaryCon. So it is what it is. You go to these shows, and I would love to make like a checklist of people who like. There was one particular person who I desperately wanted to see. I had missed her to death, and if it wasn't for the fact that she recognized me in my mask walking down the hallway and called me out, I would have never seen her. And so it's just that it is the nature of a big show, the nature of having these convention relations is. There's only so much time. There's only so many places you can go, and that's what it is. One of the evenings where I normally hook up with industry types and go out to some kind of dinner amongst industry folk. We were celebrating one of my best friend's 50th birthdays, so it was all of my local friends, people who I see all the time. But totally worth it because this was, a big milestone for him. This is a big deal for him. And, because they decided not to go to Gen Con, this was my only way to get to see them at the show, was to go out with them kind of off of Gen Con's radar. If I have one regret about the show, aside from not getting a chance to see my friends, it was that I didn't get a chance to hook up with any of the TikTok people. The very nature of TikTok makes it difficult to organize things. It's these little snippets of stuff that only go out to one person. You can only tag a handful of people in these. I know there were people that I really, really wanted to meet in person that I currently only know as 1 to 3 minute entities, and I didn't get to because you can't really plan a good event, or at least I couldn't. I was not part of planning any of these good events. I know that there were a couple of big TikTok kind of like D&D sessions and live plays and things like that. And I probably could have gone to those, and it would have been the easiest way to wrangle together. But in the same way that some events fall together, or I get a phone call from somebody that says, "Hey, we need to have a like a business meeting." I've got to be able, as a professional, I've got to take those as priority over just getting to hang out with somebody, getting to meet somebody for the first time. It sucks, but it is what it is. I would say, aside from doing a little shopping, we bought some dice, we bought a couple of games. I demoed a few games here and there. The not having some of the big people there, the big shows. Asmodee wasn't there. CMON was there, kinda. They had like a small, like a small entity to kind of drum up people to, hey, go to our website, go to Asmodee, go to Kickstarter, that kind of thing. But like not having some of these big booths was weird. Just them not being there. I know that there was a little drama. There were a few game industry professionals who have shot themselves in the foot by taking certain stances on products, doubling down when someone just says, "Hey, what you're doing is upsetting me. Could you please stop?" And instead being like, "No, it's not my responsibility. Brah. Can't you take a joke?" Listen, I'll be the first person to admit that I think that the current up and coming generation of gamers are too sensitive and too easily offended. I'll say it. I 100%. I think that they see things they see things and are bothered by things that that don't even really bother the people that are that they normally would be affecting. I do think that there is a level of thin-skinnedness that has surfaced about certain things, and getting all the clicks and the likes and the attaboys on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok because you take a stance against something isn't worth the damage that it inflicts, in my opinion. But there's always a but. If what you're doing is legitimately bothering somebody, especially if it's at your table or at your game store or in your local group, and someone asks you, "Hey, let's take a look at this. Please, it is bothering me and my friends," then look at it. Take the time to do the human thing and and go, "You know what? If it's bothering you, let's take a look and see what's going on." You guys might collectively find that it's not the case, that it was a misunderstanding, that it was just a Photoshop screw up or whatever. Or you might find that maybe if it bothers one person, it might bother a lot more, and you should think about switching things up, changing it around so it doesn't so that doesn't happen. Hence, that's the nature of a commercial system. Is I will never say the customer is always right, because that's how we lead to entitled assholes. Sorry for the curse. But I will say that the business and the consumer are supposed to work in concert. They're supposed to work together. The business wants to create a product that you want and that you will pay for, giving him profit. The consumer wants a quality product that will please them in some fashion, and hopefully not cost so much as to be prohibitive. That's kind of the relationship. And so when a group of people look at your product and say, "Hey, this is offensive, this needs to change," rather than saying, "Oh, really? Let's take a look at that." If your response is, "Screw you, you guys don't know what you're talking about, grow a thicker spine," then you might have an issue. And in this instance, some of that stuff got ugly enough that Gen Con had to step in, and there was a game designer whose presence was requested, or rather, he was escorted off of the grounds. And from what I understand, there was a second one later in the weekend when something came up about some legal issues. Um, so it all just comes down to, I think Gen Con did a really, really good job of policing themselves, both health, safety, and mental health of some of the con goers. But yeah, so I spent some time running around. Got to see a bunch of people. Got to take a look at some very cool stuff. One of my friends' company, Panda Cult Games, Jonathan and Liz, love them to death. Panda Cult was showing off their miniature board game of Shovel Knight, based off of the app video game. Apparently, I got to sit in and watch a little bit of a demo. Apparently, I've never played Shovel Knight, the side-scrolling video game, but they've recreated a very cool feel of a always moving forward. You know, the screen is moving and you have to catch up with it. Feel of a video game, a video game in their board game. Check it out. Shovel Knight by Panda Cult Games. Got a chance to I didn't get a chance to sit down and demo because the line was really long, but the new Dune board game looks amazing, looks friggin' fantastic. So I'm looking forward to eventually getting a chance to play that. Saw some cool expansions. So the vampire card game by Renegade, Rivals, had a new expansion. I think it was Blood and Sorcery or something like that. Very cool looking cards. I have not played Rivals. It just really hasn't just fallen into my lap in order to be able to do so. But the people I know that do say it's a great game, and said that the expansion does what it says on the tin. It adds flavor. It adds some new card options, some new build options. It is just a good choice. They started having some pre-release sales of the G.I. Joe and Transformers deck building games. I managed to grab the Transformers one. I have not played it yet. I've read through the instructions. Seems pretty straightforward when it comes to concept, but there are a lot of moving parts, which means it is not your common deck builder. Insofar that most deck builders are like, here's your stat line, or here's how much the card costs. This is what it does. This is how many points it scores you at the end of the game. Ta-da! This has a lot more moving parts to it. So I'm excited to get a chance to play that one. I hope soon. Got to see up close some of the new vampire books coming out. The Sabbat book. Already the press on the Sabbat book, if you talk to players, they're always like, excellent, I get to finally play as my evil, horrible creatures. I'm gonna tell you straight away, Vampire 5 is the 5th edition of Vampire is a story-based game. It is about narrative, it's about pushing it forward. It is not the kind of game where it is going to be difficult to run a giant, massive combat, or I mean, you'll run it narratively, you'll run it in a different sense. If you get a chance to take a look at the main rules, you should. It's got great rule sets in there for social interactions, making basically a party scene into kind of an encounter. So that's what the game set is based on. But it still has that groundwork of having conflict and things. So the Sabbat book brings the monsters, the actual bad guys, to a greater life. And now, one of the things that I will say is that almost everybody who's played Vampire for long enough, they almost always eventually go, but I want to play as a Sabbat vampire. I want to make Sabbat characters. I want to run a bad guy game. The Sabbat are not to be emulated. They are monsters, not. There's always there's always those edgelords out there that are like, Thanos was right. Whatever. No, that is not what this is about. Sabbat are horrible. Like the game, Vampires is a game about defeating your inner monster and trying to keep your humanity as long as possible. Sabbat say, screw humanity, I am the monster. And so what that does is that means from Jump Street, from the beginning of you creating a Sabbat character, you have already lost. You've already lost the battle against the monster inside, and you're the bad guy. This book reflects that highly. It is not a guide on how to play the bad guys. No, it is a guide on how to have a fully developed, characterful villains in your game. That's the best thing I can say about this book, is that it is very fully developed, and the warning at the beginning of the book that says these are not balanced for player use. These are not for your players. These are bad guys. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. You should follow that. Don't look to try and create the Sabbat game. Look to create better, cooler, bad guy Sabbat in your game. Does that make sense? That makes sense. All right, I've said my piece. And then probably I've got a couple of highlights. While I'm talking about Renegade products, this was the first place that fans were able to play Essence 20. We had Power Ranger, G.I. Joe, and Transformer adventures, two of which I wrote, being played at the convention, and universally we got good responses. Overall, everybody who they filled out the little comment form at the end of the game, because we were looking to hey, give us some feedback. We want to know what's going on. We got very positive reviews. It seems like not to pat myself on the back or anything, but we've created a good system, a solid system. People were having fun with it. The adventures played well. There was I sat and eavesdropped in on a table full of people, and they were laughing and having a good time. And again, that's the goal of playing games, is to have a good time. I don't want yeah, you can have deep and you can have emotional moments and things, but overall you want to walk away from a game having done something good that separated the monotony of regular life. You stepped away from it, and that's what these people were doing at these tables for 4 hours at a time, and it was really cool. It was neat. It was neat to see. There was one table that I did eavesdrop in on, that I was listening to the adventure, because it's an adventure that I wrote, and suddenly something was happening that isn't in my adventure, and so I kind of paused and broke in and introduced myself, and was just like, hey, I don't mean to pry, but what encounter scene are you in? And the person running it, the renegade volunteer that was running it, had mentioned that he went through and altered some of the encounters and kind of wrote some of his own stuff in the adventure. So I was like, oh, okay, that's why I didn't recognize this fight, so forth and so on. Well, I was telling I would like to get your opinion on this, please. Even if it's just a quick, yeah, I agree, yeah, I don't, whatever, comment below. My wife said that it bothered her that this game master, this volunteer, took it upon himself to change the written adventure especially in a system that had just come out. Uh, when these are like the first time people get a chance to play it, these are their tests. Uh, that whatever this guy was doing is he's basically throwing caution, into the wind, and that it is I don't want to say rude, but perhaps foolish to alter something that you're being told to run uh, when the book's not even out yet. That you don't know the extent of everything. It hasn't been played through before. That you're just kind of putting your own fingerprints on something when part of this was to see how well the system would work and such. I let her know that it didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that a game master decided to make some changes to something that I wrote, whether it was to put his own spin on it, or maybe he thought that a fight was not hard enough, or maybe he added some stuff because he had a full 6 players instead of 5. I don't know the situation. I didn't ask. I didn't pry. I didn't want to make anybody feel weird. But either way, it didn't really bother me. I'm just glad that people were having fun playing the game, enjoying the storyline, and whatnot. Natalie says that it was rude, and that particular volunteer should not, especially on a kind of test adventure, should not have changed things to suit their own whims and ego and whatnot. I would love to know your opinion. Whether or not you agree with me and be like, yeah, whatever, as long as everybody's having fun. Or if you agree more with Natalie, that's like, hey, these volunteers are supposed to be playing what you give them. And if he would have changed things and made it too hard or too easy, those players might have a tainted or biased opinion on the game itself. So let me know in the comments what you think there. But overall, I had a chance to talk to anything. I did think it was funny when I went in and talked to the people running it, kind of running the RPG room. They said that they said that there was an issue with the pre-gen characters, and I was like, oh really? What, as I made most of them, I was like, what's going on? Because the Transformers role-playing game rulebook obviously is not out yet, a lot of the mainstay just, this is what a character can do. Same thing with Power Rangers, although at least that the guys who were running the games at least had the PDF available. We didn't tell them what It's Morphing Time does. We didn't tell them what how they get their power weapon or their blade blaster. We didn't mention that. We didn't put on the character sheet what kind of action it is for a Transformer to convert from bot mode to alt mode, or vice versa. These are things that when you sit down to play and make a character and play these games, once you have the rules, you will 100% know how to do this, because it's just a main. It's just like in D&D. It doesn't tell you what kind of action is an attack action on your character sheet, because that's just a main rule. Just like in Transformers, converting from one mode to another is just a main rule. That's part of what your guy can do. So that's a nice thing to note going into the next shows where we use those pre-gens. So the people who are running, we can tell them, hey, this is something you may want to know, so forth. I know I'm getting close to the hour, and I do want to stay tight today, because I got a lot to do today besides record for you guys. I want to tell you a fun story. So, in any kind of convention where I am not tethered to a booth, where I've not said, yes, I am on your clock the whole time, where I have some time to myself, I like to get at least one. I like to highlight one event that I really want to play, whether it's a role-playing game or a miniatures tourney or something like that, where I want to be a gamer that day, and not an exhibitor, and not a game industry professional, and not a writer or a designer. I want to just be Bryan, playing games, having a good time. This year, I chose to play Tournament Magic the Gathering. Crazy, huh? I've been playing a lot of Magic with my son and a little bit online, but I've just been really really excited about it, and I really 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 love the new Adventures in Forgotten Realms Magic set. So I bought a ticket to be a part of a booster draft of the Forgotten Realms. And a booster draft is a type of tournament, for the people who don't know, where you don't come with anything. You basically blind build a deck based off of drafting cards out of packs that get passed around the tournament. And everybody, so in theory, everybody is on even ground, and so it just comes down to your deck building skills, the luck of the draw, and any kind of tactics that you might have in your head. Gameplay tactics. Well, we sat down, or I get to the Magic Hall, and first off, they did a really good job of trying to separate people out. There's always a ghost chair between everybody, so it looked a lot more full than it actually was. But it was still, still a lot of people and whatnot. But we get there, and I get there, and I wait in line at the registration, got my ticket in hand, my HQ ticket, and I get to the front to the HQ, and hand her my ticket, and I go, okay, I'm here for the 12 o'clock Adventures of Forgotten Realms booster draft. And she goes, well, it doesn't exactly work that way. You'll note that it says your window is 12 to 5. And I'm like, oh, I figured that's how long the tournament would go. That's not how it works anymore. Now, for especially things like booster drafts, they basically have a set number of seeds, set number of seedings, and as you show up with a particular brand of what you want to play, your name goes into the list, and when it gets up to 8 players or 12 players or however big it is, when it gets to that level, they grab those, they pull them off to the side, they announce that group is playing. Then you come and you play your games. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, and I haven't really gotten anybody for Forgotten Realms. You will probably be sitting here a long time. Are you on a time restraint? And I was like, well, I blocked off until 5, but the sooner I get done, the sooner I can go, unpack and all that stuff. And so she goes, well, the new pre-release Innistrad at midnight, or midnight at Innistrad, or whatever it is, the new Halloween themed thing is they're filling up a lot faster, and they're playing real quick. You might even be able to get 2 in if things go really fast. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. I was just here to try my hand at playing Magic, having playing Magic with other Magic players, and to see whether or not I still got the chops, or if it's just me and my kid having a good time, and that's really where it's going to be from here on out. So she says, all right, well, you're in this seed. When, just make sure you have your app open when you get called. And so I look at her and go, what? My app? And she goes, yeah, the companion app. And I'm like, oh, I haven't played Magic competitively in over 10 years. And she laughed, and I laughed, and she goes, oh, okay, so you probably don't have the app. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, so there's this Magic Companion app now that basically creates a lobby for you to enter a code in to get sucked into your draw, your seed, so that way all the other players that are there are built into there. It's registered what they're doing. It's showing you who plays who in the first round. It has the ability to track your life. It has the ability to roll dice. It has the ability to track your score from round to round to round. And that way, if I report a win and my opponent reports a win in the same round, the app will basically go, something's wrong. Somebody needs to, even like a 1,000-person event, the app helps keep you honest, helps keep you from accidentally, recording a score that you're not supposed to. It's pretty cool. I will say this: the life tracker was easily the coolest part for me, because I didn't bring any dice or anything with me. So it was like, oh, do I beg from everybody for resources? Oh no, it's all in the app. So she shows me how the app works. I download the app. I get ready. I sit down for the game, and booster the drafting happens. Very cool. Very easy. Nobody is grumpy about anything. Everything goes through. I managed to get into the semifinals. Um, so yeah, I did real well. However, when I got into the semifinals, I went up against somebody who they knew what they were doing. I don't remember the guy's name, but it was one of those things where my first opponents, good, had a good time, but my deck was superior, my draw was superior. Had a couple of instances where I had one instance I felt bad. I almost conceded because I think he had me, and he talked me out of it. He was like, "I don't know." He said, "We should play it through. We should play it through." I came here to play it. I'm like, "All right, cool." And I had done the math wrong in my head. I beat him on the following round. Uh, so I think he may have been kicking himself for not letting me concede stupidly. Um, but so my first players, I beat them pretty well. You know, not like, it wasn't like a yawn. Oh, okay, you're dead now. It was hard fought battles. And then I got into my semifinals match guy. That dude knew what he was doing. From the first second he drew a card, from the time that we shook hands, or bumped elbows actually because of Rona, um, he had my number. He knew what I was playing. He knew what to play. It was ugly. I haven't been beaten that hard and fast in Magic in ages. And so I told him, I was like, dude, good on you. I'm glad that you I'm glad that you schooled me, because if I would have managed to beat what you're putting down on the table, I would have called it absolute luck of the draw. But either way, I still get to leave with my cards, the cards that I took for my deck. Plus, I won high enough in the tournament that I also got like 5 packs of cards and like a theme pack that was all about werewolves. Um, it's cool. It was just a neat. It was a neat experience. I had a lot of fun. Doesn't mean that I'm gonna build decks and come out to the next time there's a big draft at the game store. No, that's I still I'm not calling myself a Magic player. I'm having fun, and it was neat to play at a convention against a bunch of people. A guy from California, a guy from Idaho that I've never met before. That was just neat. It was a neat experience, and I'm glad I got to do it. Um, and then I picked up some toys for myself, obviously, while I was there. A couple other games that I have yet to play, a couple to try. Um, Finally tracked down my box of Orc Boys that apparently nobody, Games Workshop themselves, are even out of in a heartbeat. Um, just overall, it was a great experience. I know I'm gonna go ahead and close out here. I I'm glad it was small. I'm glad that everyone stayed masked. I'm glad that hopefully it will have been it was avoided as a super spreader event like everybody was terrified of. Um, Time will tell if that's the case. I More than anything, I'm just glad that conventions are back. My wife even commented. She said that I looked happier than I had been in a long time. And it's not to say that I haven't been happy. I've been happy. But conventions really do something special to me. Being around all of my peers, being around, going to a booth and seeing my product sitting on the shelf, and then seeing someone buy it. Um, Talking to people I've known for 20 years about business stuff. It's a different atmosphere, and I don't realize I never realized how much I missed it. Just how much. At my height when I was at CMON, I was doing 12 shows a year, 13 shows a year. Now I'm doing like 2, maybe 3. I miss it. I miss it. And I'm super glad that next month I get to go to GameholeCon, and then it's just a few short months after that before Adepticon / GaryCon, which is at the same weekend again. Quit doing that. So I'm going to probably try and do 2 days at both. Um, just I'm just excited. It's good stuff all around. I wish I could make it out to Origins, but that's just not going to happen. It's too close to Gen Con this year for me to make that work. But either way, Gen Con was a great time. I really do encourage you, if there is a local show, especially a show that's like requiring vaccination proof or requiring masks, give it a try. Brave it. Be a good person. Don't be dumb about it. But get out there and enjoy the part of the industry that we were missing for almost 18 months. So, and even if you can't, be smart, get vaccinated, wear your mask, get a booster if you can. I know they're starting to unveil who can get boosters. But overall, just have a good time, enjoy yourself, and play some games. See you next week.